be about the future, but it's also important that we see how far we've come in the last year together. Now, last year, I told you at this podium that we would make job creation job one, that we'd live within our means, that we'd improve our schools, and that we'd cut taxes. And thanks to the hard-working people of this state and all of you in this room, we did just what we said we would do. We balanced our budgets. We created jobs. We cut red tape. We improved our schools and our roads, and we paid down state debt. Heck, I even put the state plane up for sale. I mean, if you know anybody that's looking for a good deal on a Beechcraft King Air, give me a call. We did all of that, and we came together to give Hoosiers the largest state tax cut in Indiana history. That's a record of accomplishment of which we can all be proud. The result? Indiana's become a national leader in job growth. Last year, Hoosiers created more than 47,500 new private sector jobs, and we maintained our AAA credit rating, one of the few states in the union to do that. And in November, 1 out of 8 jobs created in the United States of America was created by businesses right here in Indiana. That is an extraordinary accomplishment for our people. Unemployment was 8.6% when I stood here last year. And while it's still too high today, at 7.3%, unemployment in Indiana now is at a 5-year low. And since 2009, Indiana has the 5th fastest private sector job growth in the United States of America. Indiana's on the move because of the people of Indiana. And let me say, most encouraging to this dad, Indiana's 4th and 8th graders recently showed the 2nd best improvement in America in math and reading scores, and 4th grade reading proficiency is at an all-time high. That's an accomplishment we can all be proud of. So we've made progress in jobs and schools, but with still too many Hoosiers out of work, with our state lagging behind in per capita income and health, and too many kids in underperforming schools, I believe we must remain relentless, bold, and ambitious to keep our state moving forward. That's why last month I traveled throughout the state, from Fort Wayne to our old state capitol in Corridor, and outlined my agenda for 2014. And in the time we have remaining, I want to share a few highlights with all of you tonight. First, we all recognize that low taxes are essential to attracting the kind of investment that will create good-paying jobs. And even with our recent progress, I believe that one significant impediment to business investment remains. It's called the business personal property tax. Now, this tax is especially damaging because it's harder for Hoosier businesses to grow because it ultimately directly taxes investments that they make in equipment. Now, let me say emphatically, taxing equipment and technology in a state that leads the nation in making and creating things just doesn't make sense. And it looks like our neighboring states have figured it out. Ohio and Illinois don't have a business personal property tax, and Michigan lawmakers just voted to phase theirs out. To make Indiana more competitive, I want to urge all the members of both chambers, let's work together to find a responsible way to phase out the business personal property tax. But one word of caution. As we work through this process, let's make sure we do it in a way that protects our local governments and doesn't shift the burden of this business tax onto the backs of hardworking Hoosiers. Now, I appreciate that both the House and the Senate leadership are looking at the business personal property tax and other ways to ensure that Indiana has the best tax climate possible. But phasing out the business personal property tax, I believe, will spur new investment by businesses large and small. Businesses like Coas Technology, an advanced manufacturing startup in Anderson, Indiana, launched by a Marine veteran whose products help support our troops. Or larger businesses like Amatrol in Jeffersonville, started back in 1964 by Don and Roberta Perkins to manufacture technical training systems and software for colleges and industry. Today, Amatrol employs 143 Hoosiers, and in 2010, it was named the Indiana Outstanding Business of the Year. These are just two of the kind of success stories we can see more of in Indiana with the right kind of tax reform. And since I mentioned both of them, why don't you join me in welcoming those two great Indiana business stories, Nate Richardson of Coas Technology and Paul Perkins of Amatrol, who are with us tonight in the People's House. Thanks for making Indiana the state that works. But we have to do more than just improve our tax code to get this economy moving again. Because roads mean jobs, we need to release $400 million for the next era of highway expansion and put Hoosiers back to work, keeping us as the crossroads of America. And because Indiana is agriculture, we need a permanent fix to the soil productivity factor. And because Indiana's regional cities are vital to our state's economic development, we need to encourage public and private investment to improve the quality of life in our cities. That's the Indiana way to a growing future, in the city and on the farm. And that way also means standing up to Washington, D.C. from time to time. Now, most Hoosiers didn't like Washington intruding on our health care long before it became a reality. Now more people than ever know why we were right to stand up to the federal government on the Affordable Care Act. There's been a lot of talk these days, though, about Medicaid. The sad truth is that traditional Medicaid is not just broke, it's broken. Research shows that the program actually doesn't lead to better health outcomes, and in some cases, believe it or not, it actually hurts the very people it's supposed to help. One analysis found 2/3 of children on Medicaid who needed to see a specialist actually couldn't in that program. Traditional Medicaid is not a system we need to expand, it's a system we need to change. And I believe the Healthy Indiana Plan is a great place to start. The Healthy Indiana Plan is a consumer-driven health care plan that moves people from emergency rooms to primary care and encourages low-income Hoosiers to take more ownership of their own health care decisions. But let me be clear on this point. We will continue to work in good faith with federal officials to expand access to the Healthy Indiana Plan in our state. But I will oppose any expansion of our health insurance system that condemns vulnerable Hoosiers to substandard health care or threatens the fiscal health of our state. Of course, the most important aspect for achieving Indiana's long-term success is all about our kids. It's about our schools. If we can't succeed in the classroom, we won't succeed in the marketplace. The great news is, to all those gathered here and my fellow Hoosiers looking on, Indiana schools are succeeding. This year, more than 500 public schools improved a full letter grade or more. With nearly 20,000 choice scholarships currently in use, Indiana has the fastest growing school choice program in the country. And with strong bipartisan support from both chambers last year, we're busy all over this state working to make career and vocational education a priority in every high school in Indiana again. We've made great progress in our schools. And working together, we've accomplished a lot. On career education, we're expanding curriculum in our high schools and developing new partnerships with local businesses to support regional career education. Now, while anyone who wants to go to college, regardless of where they start in life, ought to be encouraged to go, we all know there's a lot of good jobs in Indiana that don't require a college degree. These new partnerships through our regional works councils operating all over the state of Indiana will make sure that our schools work for all of our kids, regardless of where they start in life and regardless of where they want to start in life. To ensure we succeed in this effort, I'm proposing legislation that will conduct an in-depth assessment of how our career and technical education dollars are spent. And let's also make sure that adults who have a high school degree get the skills they need to get back on their feet by repurposing current job training dollars to help adult workers get the high-wage, high-demand jobs that are available in Indiana today. You know, Hoosiers have high expectations when it comes to our schools. That's why Indiana decided to take a time out on national education standards. When it comes to setting standards for our schools, let me be clear. Indiana's standards will be uncommonly high, and they will be written by Hoosiers, for Hoosiers, and be among the best in the nation. That progress that I just described earlier is a testament to our kids, to our parents, to our teachers, to our administrators, and it's a testament to the Indiana State Board of Education. Join me in thanking every member of the Indiana State Board of Education and Superintendent Glenda Ritz, who are here with us tonight. We appreciate your service for the people of Indiana. You know, I've always said there's nothing that ails education in Indiana that can't be fixed by giving parents more choices and teachers more freedom to teach. To continue to give parents more choices, I believe we can start in the area of early childhood development. Because every child deserves to start school ready to learn, I believe the time has come for a voluntary pre-K program to help Indiana's disadvantaged kids. Now, I'll always believe the best pre-K program is a prosperous family that's able to provide the kind of enrichment in the home that every child needs and deserves. But the reality is that's just not the case for too many Indiana children. Now, it's important that this program be voluntary. It's important that this program be available in the form of a voucher as well. I want parents to be able to choose to send their child to a church-based program, a private program, or a public pre-K program that they think would best meet their needs. But I urge all of you in this session of the General Assembly, let's come together, let's work across party lines. On behalf of our children and their future, let's open the doors of opportunity to low-income families for quality pre-K education in Indiana this year. Another way to give parents more choices is to expand the availability of public charter schools. Even though they're charter schools, charters operate actually with several disadvantages. We need to level the playing field and allow charter schools to manage their budgets with the same flexibility as traditional public schools. At the same time, in the interest of greater choices for families, we should make sure that unused or underutilized public school buildings can be put to use by charters and other schools that need them. Now, choice matters, but at the end of the day, every Hoosier knows a good teacher makes all the difference. You know, we can all think of a teacher who changed our lives, someone who's on our mind right now, someone who saw more in us than we saw in ourselves. I think of Sister Rachel. I think of Mrs. Fisher and others who touched my life. But too often we don't invest enough in our teachers and allow them to lead as reformers. After all, they've dedicated their lives to education, and I believe we should do more to unleash their creativity and expertise. That's why I believe we need a teacher innovation fund to help teachers who are willing to try new ways to teach our kids. Innovative teachers like Steve Perkins, a Latin teacher from North Central High School in Indianapolis, whose enthusiasm has ignited a passion for classical education in that school. And it got him named the 2014 Teacher of the Year. Mr. Perkins and his family are here with us tonight. And with all the talk about parental choice, I believe teachers deserve more choices too. I think that any public school teacher who feels called to serve in a low-performing school should have some of their compensation protected if they're willing to make that move. Let's let our teachers follow their hearts and go where they think they can make the most difference. Now, on the subject of marriage, I know we're in the midst of a debate over whether Indiana should join some 30 other states that have enshrined the definition of marriage in our state constitution. Each of us has our own perspective on this matter. For my part, I believe in traditional marriage, and I've long held the view that the people, rather than unelected judges, should decide matters of such great consequence in our society. Now, reasonable people can differ, and there are good people on both sides of this debate. So let me say from my heart, no one on either side of this debate deserves to be disparaged or maligned because of who they are or what they believe. Let's have a debate worthy of our people with civility and respect. Let's protect the rights of Hoosier employers to hire who they want and provide them with the benefits that they deserve. And then let's resolve this issue this year, once and for all. And after that's over, let's come together to support every Hoosier family. One way we can do that is by helping working families with their family budget. Did you know that our tax deductions for dependents in Indiana have not increased since 1978, even though the cost of living has increased 3.6 times? I think it's time to index the personal and dependent exemptions to inflation to end this hidden tax on working families in Indiana. And let's also remember that families come together in many different ways, like the family of Karen Sauer. Karen's a single mom who felt called to become a parent by adoption. She adopted her two kids, Nevin and Dustin, when they were 11 and 12 years old after they'd spent many years in foster care. Karen says people are always telling her that she's changing those kids' lives. She's always quick to say, they're changing mine. Would you join me in welcoming a great Indiana family to the People's House tonight? Karen and the kids, you're an inspiration to us all. Adoption is a beautiful way for families to come together forever, and we can better support families like Karen's by expanding and improving adoption in Indiana. We can improve the way we place children from state care into adoptive homes, and we can support every parent who's willing to lovingly adopt a child into their home. I think we should make it our aim to do nothing less than to make Indiana the most pro-adoption state in the United States of America.
More now from Mike Pence's time as Indiana governor. In March of 2015, the Indianapolis Star ran a full-page headline titled "Fix This Now," a reference to a state law making it easier for businesses and individuals to discriminate against people because of their gender. Responding to widespread criticism, Governor Pince called on the state legislature to add language protecting LGBT rights. Here he is addressing the issue before reporters.
Thank you all for coming. It's been a tough week here in the Hoosier State, but we're going to move forward. Because as governor, I have the great privilege of serving the greatest people on earth, the people of Indiana. Let me say first and foremost, I was proud to sign the Religious Freedom Restoration Act last week. I believe religious liberty, as President Clinton said when he signed the federal law in 1993, I believe religious liberty is our first freedom, and it is vital to millions of Americans who cherish faith, as I and my family do. But it's also vital to the framework of freedom in our nation. And this legislation was designed to ensure the vitality of religious liberty in the Hoosier State. I believe Hoosiers are entitled to the same protections that have been in place in our federal courts for the last 20-plus years and in the law in 30 other states. But clearly, there's been misunderstanding and confusion and mischaracterization of this law. And I come before you today to say how we're going to address that. We've been working over the last several days literally around the clock. Been talking with people across the state of Indiana, talking to business leaders, and talking to organizations around the country who have spent time in Indiana and enjoyed the hospitality of the people of Indiana, and we've been listening. Well, let me say first and foremost, as I've said to each one of them, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act was about religious liberty, not about discrimination. As I said last week, had this law been about legalizing discrimination, I would have vetoed it. This law does not give anyone a license to discriminate. The Religious Freedom Restoration Act in Indiana does not give anyone the right to deny services to anyone in this state. It is simply a balancing test used by our federal courts and jurisdictions across the country for more than 2 decades. And let me say on the subject of the bill itself, I don't believe for a minute that it was the intention of the General Assembly to create a license to discriminate or a right to deny services to gays, lesbians, or anyone else in this state. And it certainly wasn't my intent. But I can appreciate that that's become the perception, not just here in Indiana, but all across this country. And we need to confront that, and confront it boldly, in a way that respects the interests of all involved. A personal reflection for a moment, if I can. I abhor discrimination. The way I was raised was like most Hoosiers, with the golden rule, that you should do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I believe in my heart of hearts that no one should be harassed or mistreated because of who they are, who they love, or what they believe. And I believe every Hoosier shares that conviction. But as I said, we've got a perception problem here because some people have a different view. And we intend to correct that. After much reflection and in consultation with leadership of the General Assembly, I've come to the conclusion that it would be helpful to move legislation this week that makes it clear that this law does not give businesses a right to deny services to anyone. Let me say that again. I think it would be helpful, and I'd like to see on my desk before the end of this week legislation that is
added to the Religious Freedom Restoration Act in Indiana that makes it clear that this law does not give businesses a right to deny services to anyone. We want to make it clear that Indiana is open for business. We want to make it clear that Hoosier hospitality is not a slogan, it's our way of life. It's the reason why people come here from around the world, and they come back again and again and again. Because Hoosiers are the kindest, most generous, most decent people in the world. Let me say I believe this is a clarification, but it's also a fix. It's a fix of a bill that, through mischaracterization and confusion, has come to be greatly misunderstood. And I'm determined to address this week and to move forward as a state. And I know we will. Indiana has come under the harsh glare of criticism from around the country. And some of us get paid to be under that harsh glare and that criticism, so we don't complain about it. But the things that have been said about our state have been, at times, deeply offensive to me. And I will continue to use every effort to defend the good and decent people of Indiana. I think it's important that we take this action this week.